What you need comes to you when you're ready. You've heard something similar to that, right? Or when the student is ready, the teacher appears. And what does that mean? And what does it feel like? Like, how do you know? What are the things that are going to be happening to you? What are the feelings you're going to be feeling when you've reached this place in your life where you're being pulled, you feel like something's calling to you, like you're being drawn into something, and then it's easy for us to sometimes want to resist, right? And say, I'm not ready for this, or I don't know what it is. And it's like, well, what is this? What's calling out to me, and why? And what am I supposed to do? There's a time in your life, and I know this doesn't happen for everyone. For some reason, it doesn't. But for the ones that it does happen to, it's a doorway to a transformation, a beginning of a transformation, and an indicator that it's going to probably be a long story. Something extraordinary is waiting for you. But what is it, right? What is it? What's waiting for me? Rarely are we going to be handed a book, and on the cover is a picture of you with the title, "This is every move you need to make in life." And you're not going to get that. You think, oh, what, I'm being called, but now what, right? Yeah, you're not going to get a book of instructions. You're not going to get a how-to. You're going to have to figure it out. But figure it out you will if you answer the call. And the interesting thing about this is that when this time comes, if it comes for you, the merciful thing is that if you screw it up the first time, it'll come back for you. But it might be useful to be sensitive to this moment if it is at your doorstep. Because when it comes back to you, it could be a year, it could be a few years, or 10. And you don't want to waste that time, because your story could be a significant story, and you want to be able to enjoy the fruits of your labor at some point, not when you're 90, okay, or 80. You want to be at rest by then. But something is calling out to you, and you're feeling it, you're just like, because it registers as this unease and unrest inside of you. And it looks like you're not happy with the company you've been keeping. You're not turned on by the conversations of people that you used to be engaged with. Or maybe you were a political type, and now you're just like, this is a disaster, politics. And it's like, one side's not any better than the other side, because both sides think that their side is the only side there is that has credibility, that has the right elements, that is just right, We're the compassionate ones. We're the smarter ones. And both sides are thinking that way, and they look at the other side, the people on the other side, and they see an enemy instead of a brother or a sister. And, for whatever reason, they can't see the hundreds, maybe thousands of similarities that you have, but they instead concentrate on the one or two things that you don't have in common. That's by design. And, once you start to realize that, and you start to see how you've been being managed in life, and how you've been corralled into thinking small, something in you starts to shift. And you start to see life differently. And you're just not excited by the things that used to excite you. And now you're starting to feel like, well, shit, I'm not so sure I was born on this planet. Where am I from? Why don't I resonate with this stuff anymore? And so, if you're feeling, if any of this sounds familiar to you, guess what? You're at a crossroads. And, maybe somebody came into your life that just blew your world wide open with crazy ideas and notions. And they showed you a side of life that you had never seen before, a perspective that you never thought of, or you just watched them live their life with such authenticity that it was impossible not to see. And something inside of you is saying, I want to live like that. I want to not give one rat's ass what somebody thinks about me. I want to get up there and say what I want without feeling small or scared or intimidated. I want to experience that freedom. I want to experience that exhilaration. But, where do you start, right? And I just want to tell you, I was there too. This process of awakening is a long process, And I think for a lot of people, it starts somewhere around 40 if it's going to start at all. And it might start earlier. It depends. There's a lot of people even in their 20s who are the light switch that came on. They had somebody in their life that put a light on that could not be ignored. And destiny takes over. But for me, it wasn't that way. I was 41 or 42 when I started to awaken, where I started to feel these feelings. And I have to tell you my story so that you could recognize it in your life, what it looks like, because my life is your life. And I'm just the guy, that I'm the guy that never graduated high school, never took a business course, never, I just worked manual labor jobs all my life. But I did, and still do, have a curiosity about the world we live in and the people that occupy it, and myself included. And I've always known that there's more to life than meets the eye, that there's something there that we don't see. And there's something special about life. And there's something special about me. And there's something special about you. But in this world, you're conditioned not to believe you're special. You know who you think is special? Tom Cruise and Penelope Cruz and all the Cruzes of the world, all the movie stars. All we care about what they eat for breakfast, what's in their garbage, what kind of car do they drive, who are they married to. We are kept occupied so that we're not looking at our life, at our world. And so we have all these distractions over here, these shiny objects that are saying, look over here, look at me, laugh, ha ha. Watch this show every night. Before you know it, you're spending 7 hours a day in front of the television, the boob tube, the idiot box. Well, I hope someday you could see it for what it is. It's hypnotizing so many people into believing that life is meant to be spent in this arena of entertainment and being entertained instead of exploration and going inward into the self and understanding the self and realizing your potential and getting excited about expanding and finding out just what your potential is, instead of watching these circus performers on TV. When I first started to wake up, awaken, how people use different terminologies for it. Spiritual awakening starting at 40 to 42 years old, somewhere in there. And at that time, I was working 3 jobs. My life was falling apart. Marriage disintegrating, working those 3 jobs, which were nowhere jobs. I had no money, no future. And I was in a crisis, man. Not just in every way you can imagine, physically, mentally, spiritually, where I just was not being fulfilled. I knew I wasn't being fulfilled. And I was working these 3 jobs and they were all happening on the weekend and not during the week. I just couldn't find a place where I felt like I belonged. Nothing seemed safe. And everything felt temporary. And everything was just screaming chaos and disaster. And I felt all of it, It was like I was driving a tractor trailer, driving a limousine, and working a farmer's market table for somebody. And these jobs were hard and required a lot from me for very little pay. There was no future in any of them. And I was just doing them to survive. So it was just like, and it was going from one job to the other, sleeping in a parking lot, waiting for the next job. And there just was no quality of life. There's just nothing special about it. And maybe you understand what I'm saying. These are the clearest identifiers that you're at a crossroads in your life, that you're ready for a change. And I remember in my trips from here to Phoenix driving the tractor trailer where I just would be so tired, and I just would be chomping on Granny Smith apples to try to stay awake for the trip. And sometimes I would be screaming out the window in an effort to try to stay awake, and keep from falling asleep. And then other times I just wanted to die because I just felt like I was on some hamster wheel, some giant hamster wheel, and there was nothing special about life, and there was nothing special about me. And I just felt like my life was a disaster, and there didn't seem to be any indicators that something good was waiting for me. And I was really in a desperate state. Desperate, you guys. And I had ideas in my head, like it would just be better to be dead. You know, just to be done with this and maybe start over if there was a starting over possible, you know. And I can remember when the door opened for me, where life, this force of life that we're talking about today, right? When the student is ready, the teacher appears, or what's meant for you you can never not come into contact with that moment, or a moment where you're given this doorway. A doorway opens for you. Just before that happened for me, I was probably at the lowest point of my life, and I remember sitting in the parking lot and just exploded in my car at God and his ridiculous plan for me and his ridiculous life and this ridiculous game, whatever this is, this game of life and my life, and how I felt like God was asking me to do things that were too big for me. He was asking me to dream about things that were out of my reach. And I just didn't understand the feelings that I were feeling, because no one explained to me what was going on. You know, I just thought I was having a crisis, maybe a midlife crisis or something. I don't know, you know. And when the doorway opened for me, it looked like this. I was at the farmer's market, and this young man comes to my table and he says, my father's a beekeeper in town. He's a lawyer for the university, but he's a beekeeper on the weekends. And he wants to know if you want to buy his honey. And I can't tell you how I knew or why I knew that something weird was happening, but I did know somehow inside that there was something special about this moment. There was something that was pivotal, you know, a key moment. So I took this guy's info and had it on a piece of paper, and then later I'm looking at this piece of paper and I'm like, let me just go over there and see what's going on. And so I go over to this guy's house, Tom's house, and we start talking, and he takes me out back, and he's got this old metal shed in the backyard that, you know, the kind where it takes like 2 people to open the sliding door because the channels are jammed with dirt and mud and old crusted dirt, you know. And inside was all of these just jars of honey, but they were all dirty and covered with dirt and dust, and like, you know, no labels or anything. It had to be cleaned and washed. And he wanted me to buy that honey, and I was like, okay. I look in my pocket. I have $212 to my name. To my name. And I've got a car outside that's doesn't have a lot of gas in it. I got to give money to somebody in a few days. And I'm left with what then? So if I buy this honey, I'm going to be next to broke again. Like broke. I was already broke, but this is like really broke, you know. It's like, And I'm thinking to myself, what the hell, what should I do? What am I going to do? Because I'm being faced with this opportunity. And I took it. I said, okay. I bought a case of honey. And I took those jars and I set up a card table and a folding chair at the Miranda exit by the Chevron over there in the Circle K. And I had a handwritten sign, local raw honey, and I had a sombrero hat because it was hot. And I sat there, and lo and behold, a car pulls over, buys the jar of honey. And I was like, that's cool. And then another car stops, and more cars. And I stayed thinking to myself, wow, all I had to do was come over here and sit down, and they're stopping, and I'm selling them. And then I started thinking, oh, it's a fluke. You know, they're going to stop. There's a woodpecker banging on my building. Get that bird. That bird. I want to get that bird. But I started thinking like, oh, this can't go on forever. You know, they're going to stop. My luck is like, oh, this is not going to continue because that's the way my luck has always gone. But I sold that whole case, and then I needed more. So I went back and I got more. And I set up again and I sold it too. And that's how I started this business. And that opened, I'm not saying that everything was peaches and cream after that, okay, but it was the beginning. It was the beginning of my new life. And last year I had another beginning. And it was also one of uncertainty, difficult. And so when you're presented this doorway, it's almost always going to be accompanied with some chaos, some uncertainty, fear, doubt. And can you hear that bird? I want to go out there and throw a rock at that bird because he's putting dents into my building. I don't like that. Anyway, I want to encourage you, if you're feeling this pull in your life, I don't want to blow sunshine and rainbows up your backside. I can almost promise you that it's if you say yes to this, if you walk through that door, especially if you're by yourself, well, it's not going to be easy. But if you have an opportunity to walk through that door with someone that is experienced, that has already walked through that door, then I think you've got something there that not a lot of people have. Because when you have to figure something out for yourself, it's almost always there's a learning curve you have to take. And sometimes you have to do that. I did. I didn't have anyone to walk through that door. I tried like hell to get someone to walk through that door with me, but nobody would. So I had to do it myself. And it was uncomfortable. Very, very uncomfortable. And so that's what I'm telling you is that, you know, you have so many choices available, but you have to decide. You have to pick, you know, what are you going to do? And the window of opportunity is sometimes small. It's small. And When another opportunity will come around if you pass this one, that's unknown. We just don't know. What I suggest is that you don't pass it by. Breathe deep. Take courage. And jump in. You know, it's like going in a swimming pool. You know the water's cold. You know it's gonna, like, your heart's gonna stop when you go in, but there's only one way to do it, right? You jump in. You just jump in, because if you try walking in slowly, you're just gonna suffer needlessly. Just jump in. Go. Just rip that Band-Aid off. Just jump in. Take your chance. Take your shot. Shoot your shot. That's what they say. I did it. I've done it more than once. And if I could do it, you could do it. Why would you do it? Why do it? What's the payoff? The payoff is that you understand yourself better, that you can live with yourself. Because when you lay your head down on your pillow at night and when you close your eyes, it's just your thoughts that are rolling around up there. And you need to be at peace with yourself. You need to have that. It's important. You need to know that you're brave and that your thoughts and your ideas are credible and that you're powerful and that you're good and that there's good in you and that there's potential inside of you, and you're going to allow it to emerge. And you're going to give yourself the permission to be vulnerable to the world. And you're going to spread your wings and fly like you've never flown before. And who knows? Who knows what your potential is? But there's only one way to find out. And that is to answer the call when it comes for you. Something to think about. Anyway, I believe in you. I love you. And I'll see you the next time. Take care.